Hey, how's it going, universe? Welcome to the second ever episode of Zoobox Goes to the Library. Today, I am joined by frequent guest, Big Paul. We're going to be talking about Wesley Snipes, Dr. Wesley Snipes and Ray Norman's novel, Talon of God.
Love and light, family, love and light! Bam! Here it is. Talon of God. Supernatural thriller set in the mean streets of Chicago. Action-packed. Oh, hottest new release. I love it. Oh, man, look at this. And,
The logline plot synopsis for this is: the acclaimed actor makes his fiction debut with this enthralling urban fantasy in which a holy warrior must convince a doctor with no faith to help stop a powerful demon and his minions from succeeding in creating hell on earth. A thrilling adventure of science and faith, good and evil, damnation and salvation. All right, what's up, Big Paul?
How you doing, man? I'm doing well.
Just another wonderful day at Zoobox, and I get to make Paul do something maybe he would want to do. Just for a little background, Paul and I just ended up doing a bunch of Wesley Snipes stuff, and then when we did a review for all the Blade movies, and while I was doing research and stuff to cut into the episode, I stumbled across something I'd never heard of, and this was Talon of God. Wesley Snipes had written a book. I was like, whoa, because I was looking just for interview clips for about Blade and about maybe him coming back as Blade or something. And then I discovered Talon of God, and I was immediately, even if Paul didn't do it, I was like, I got to read this thing. I got to see what this is all about. And luckily, because Paul's a good friend, he was like, yeah, dude, I'll do that, of course. It's too juicy. It's too, the potential for whatever it's going to be is too interesting to not investigate some way, you know?
Oh, absolutely. How do you not go after you hear Wesley Snipes wrote a book? How do you not follow up with what's it called and how do I get it? Yeah,
because it's not even.
I don't know. At least this guy.
I could imagine him writing a book about martial arts or something like that. He's very into martial arts. He's become very spiritual in the past few years. But to write a fiction thriller, an urban fantasy, I was like, oh boy. This should be fun, because a lot of people don't know, Wesley Snipes in his heyday, especially surrounding Blade and stuff, was a producer. He was very involved in a lot of his projects. So he's not a slouch when it comes to how to construct a story or how to build characters and stuff like that. He does know what he's doing in the vein of the kinds of movies that he made back in the day. So I had some faith that this would be at least coherent. You know, I knew that it would be something. But to get us going, this book has a fucking ton of characters. I mean, I get, which shouldn't be a huge surprise, I suppose. It is a book.
Yeah, man. I think the way to fire that off is with the Jefferson family, right? So we're carried mostly through the story to get introduced to the whole world and everything. Would you say the protagonist?
I would say, yeah, Lauren Jefferson is definitely the protagonist. She kind of fulfills the role of the chosen one for the story. Normally, if this comes out 30 years ago, Wesley Snipes is Lauren Jefferson. But he, being the magnanimous man that he is, he was just like, nah, we got to be progressive. We got to put a lady in there. Women are not represented in action enough. And he was like, Lauren Jefferson. And she's and like Paul said, her whole family is kind of the central, the subtext of the story. All the things that actually matter thematically run through their family, because she has her father Maxwell, who's a preacher that she's turned away from a little bit in a rebellious sense. You know, she just kind of turned away from it. She became a doctor because she will tell you at every juncture that she's a doctor and that she's 27.
Strong-willed,
She's very altruistic, I think would be the thing that you could that would be a good label for her. Yeah. She cares. There's her introductory scene. I was kind of laughing out loud because she's just this discussion about private care versus public care and Medicaid versus private insurance.
I wasn't trying to. Do you know how many asses I had to kiss to get you that interview? I sold you to the head of HR like you were the second coming. That job was as good as yours. All you had to do was show up and say yes. So why didn't you? Because I didn't want to work there. Lauren snapped, all attempts at calm abandoned. I'm grateful you did this for me, Nari. I really am. But as I told you last week, yesterday, and this morning, I don't want to work at a private hospital in the suburbs. Why not? Nari demanded. The money? It's not about the money, Lauren said, pinching the bridge of her nose to head off the stress headache she could already feel building. I could get a better paying job anywhere, but I like working at Mercy. Don't feed me that martyr crap, her friend growled. No one likes working at a chronically underfunded inner-city hospital. Well, I do, Lauren said stiffly. They need me there. I became a doctor to help people, not treat rich ladies' tennis elbows. Rich ladies need help too, Nari reminded her. And unlike Medicaid patients, they pay. You want to do charity work? Join the Peace Corps. Why should I go all the way to another country when there are people who need help right here in Chicago? Lauren argued. I don't fault you for using your new med degree to get a sweet job in a cushy private practice, but that's not what I want for my life. Why can't you understand that?
I was like, Wesley. It made me, because it was so on the nose. She's like, I don't want to do that. I'm here to help the people. I want to help the people of my community. And so the other person's like, don't you want to make dollar bill, y'all? What the fuck? And then obviously,
and then the other Jefferson member of the family is like, New Jack City-esque Robbie.
Yes, dude. Did you make that connection too? Yeah. It's like immediately what popped in my mind, because I actually watched New Jack City like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is like, yeah, exactly. Robbie, the brother Robbie Jefferson. He's a burgeoning rapper. Who's gotten caught up? Okay, he's gotten caught up in the drug game. He's gotten caught up with an evil corporation.
Absolutely.
Do you know how old is
Jefferson family, man? This Jefferson family, and the mom died a long time ago, and Lauren has kind of become a little estranged from her family, from her hard pursuit to become a doctor in Chicago, a place where this whole book takes place. The story unfolds, right? And then and so there's some rift there between her father, who's an overbearing pastor, like you mentioned earlier, and then Robbie, who was kind of young when she went off, and now kind of messing around in the rap game and trying to get a side hustle with pushing some drugs that we'll talk into later. Will Tanahan.
Yes.
Chicago ICD.
Well, Will Tannenbaum actually is Paul.
Tannenbaum.
And you know what's crazy? Because like I just remembered that like 30 minutes ago, because I was like, Will. I know his name's Will Tannenbaum, because actually they only say his full name like 5 or 6 times, which, if you read this book, they're constantly calling each other by their full names. And I was like, what the fuck is his name? I couldn't remember for the life of me, because so much, and like just to talk about the story a little bit, it's one of those stories that like is in one ear, out the other. You're like taking it in, you're like, okay, and it's just leaving you. You're trying to remember, because I know I'm doing a podcast. I'm like trying to grab all this stuff from the ether. I'm like, don't leave me yet. I need to talk about this.
That may become a thing later. I'm not sure. Not sure.
And
it's just like any like cop show like on ABC, right? I will not to jump too like far ahead, but like every description of every character you meet here like reads like some like ABC like soap opera, right?
Will looked exactly the same as he had when she'd last seen him. Like exactly right down to the scruffy, curling dark hair, 5 o'clock shadow, and tired eyes he'd stared at her with the night they'd broken up. He was even wearing the same jacket, the leather one. Lauren didn't believe that for a second. Will had been a lousy boyfriend, but he was an excellent cop. He might look like the nice Jewish boy next door, but he was a smooth operator with a network of informants reporters would kill for. He'd probably known she'd been hospitalized before the ink was dry on her admission form.
Like it's like so descriptive. Everyone's got like like we see like this altruistic trait among them, no matter what their flaws are. But they talk about this. Everybody is handsome, described. Great. There's like some. It's just like
it's because of the way the format of the book is like a script. Like it's like you're reading a script. It's very cinematic. It's very almost like central casting. That's what you would write if you were like, I'm looking for this type of person to cast in a role, which we're gonna get into later.
right.
But like that's why those descriptions are like, because they like stop and they just like there's a paragraph.
So Will Tannenbaum, thank you, Shaun.
White ex-boyfriend.
Well, the handsome Jewish boy next door, right?
You gotta watch out for those guys,
Handsome Jewish boy next door in Chicago. So who briefly dated Lauren to the dismay of her father, living in sin. Part of we'll get into a little bit of that of her rebelling against her dad, the Jewish white boy. But both of them so passionate in their work and no time for anything else, and that's why that never went into anything.
There's literally
he had like a decade on her, and she's 26.
Like Will Tannenbaum he's a Chicago detective, and he's like he's not really there. Like actually, he's very underdeveloped, and you're kind of like you could cut him out of the story almost, and it wouldn't matter. But there's a hilarious line where like the villains are like doing they're talking about their plot, and they're like, oh, you got Will Tannenbaum on us? Oh, that guy's a dog and detective. He doesn't stop for anything. Like he's the man. He's gonna find out. He's gonna stop us. I'm like, what the fuck?
Just every character's introduced with they're the best at whatever they're doing in this universe, right? So.
Oh yeah, and they always like, especially with Lauren, they always like hit on her like main like feelings about the world like over and over and over and over again. Like so even by the end of the book when shit is going off the chain, she's still like, this feels like a delusion.
Yeah.
Like she's still like kind of
we got some bits on that later, man.
Because that's her whole thing is like, do I want to give over to my faith?
Right.
Because of my father. The next character I guess we should talk about is well,
no. Stay within the realms, man. We got Will, then who's Will's boss?
Oh,
Victor Corrigan.
Detective Corrigan, who is basically the new police chief, who it is revealed as the story. He's very skeptical of anything anybody says. Like, and the guy who reads this, because we listened to the Audible version, Malik Yoba of Cool Runnings fame.
Yeah, buddy.
He does the most stereotypical, like cheesy Chicago accent ever, and it is glorious.
First off, watch yourself. I respect your passion, but I have no problem docking your pay until you remember your place in this department. Am I clear?
And it makes it so much fun. And because anytime Detective Corrigan talks, he's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Demons? What do you mean? No. This is just we got homeless people. We got drugs.
Because the guy is described as a mercenary that grew up through Warrentown, refugee, like migrant from one town in Eastern Europe to another.
A former military contractor, Corrigan was different from the usual brand of incompetent hack or crooked city government crony who traditionally passed through the revolving door of police chief. Both he and the mayor, who'd practically handed Corrigan the job on a silver platter, had expertly dodged all questions about his past. But Will, being Will, had done some digging and hadn't liked what he'd found. In the very few comments he'd made about his past work experience, the mayor had called Corrigan a hard-working immigrant and veteran of the Bosnian War who understood what it took to keep a city safe.
And then he migrates over to Chicago, and all of a sudden, speaks like he's been born and raised there on, the south end of Chicago. So,
yeah. He sounds like he's like if Bob Hoskins back in the day had been hired to do a Chicago detective. Bob Hoskins from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like that's what he would do. Like that would be the accent he would do. It's very funny.
Yeah.
It's very funny. And he's basically the lackey of the big bad, Christopher St. Luke.
Not surprisingly, Christopher St. Luke looked exactly like he did on television. A handsome, fit man in his late 50s with winking blue eyes, silver fox hair, and a wry smile that made him appear like he was constantly appreciating a joke you weren't sophisticated enough to understand. Like the partygoers at the front of his mansion, he was dressed in a suit that cost more than the average American made in a decade. But unlike them, he wore it like it didn't matter.
Or so we think is the big bad, who's a billionaire who's got his fingers in everything. He's selling guns, he's selling drugs, he's dealing with the devil. Like, he's all over the place. He talks in a fancy man accent.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. I've been very impressed with your work so far, keeping the police so agreeably out of my hair.
Yeah, and he's got a great bod. He was described as, being essentially a silver fox, chiseled woman. Seriously, bitches falling off him as you get introduced to him.
Yeah.
In the novel, right? So Christopher St. Luke, man, the guy fucks, and he's got a lot of money, and he's got a very sinister deformed human collection in the basement of his mansion.
It's fucking, like I said, it gets crazy. And he's basically serves there he exposition dumps. Mm-hmm. Every time he's there to explain what the bad things are, what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That's every scene with him is like him just talking about the evil plan, basically. Mm-hmm. So they take like a James Bond villain monologue, and they just stretch it out for the entire book. Like, because every time they go back, he gives you the next piece of the plot,
And then Mel Gilba reads them too is also, I think, is just as hilarious as Victor, because the
fancy man accent.
You see, I've had the privilege of being me for 63 years. Yeah.
Don't you know, Corrigan? I'm the master. I work for the darkness, Corrigan. Oh my god, there's a hilarious little plot of him signing over his fortune to Corrigan, and Corrigan's like, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, don't touch you at all. Okay. The guy collects fucking human beings down in the basement or whatever. But I told St. Luke, I told him I want that shit in writing. I want that shit in writing. You want me to put that shit in writing? All's good. All's good.
Now, see, if they had written his character as an actual Chicago detective that had just fallen his way to the police chief, maybe you could buy that, because you'd be like, oh, he's a fucking dumb dude from Chicago. But his backstory is not that. So
no,
even though Malik Yoba plays him that way, as if he is a dumb donut eating Chicago police officer.
Yeah.
And then you have basically Christopher St. Luke's number 2, Lincoln Black.
Instead, the servant who led him here motioned for Corrigan to wait and scuttled over to the nearest pile of pillows to speak to a man currently buried under multiple women. There was a brief exchange, and then the man stood up, his drugged lovers rolling off him like raindrops as he shrugged his muscular fighter's body into the dark jacket and leather pants the servant discreetly handed him. When he was presentable, the man reached down and picked up a sword off the floor. Not a replica or showpiece either, but an actual, long-handled, slightly curving blade with clear wear marks notched into its edge. The man checked his weapon and slipped it into a sheath on his belt before sending the servant fleeing with a wave of his hand as he turned to greet Chicago's chief of police. Well, well, look who's wandered in out of the cold. Corrigan's jaw tightened. This was not the man he'd come to see, but it also wasn't someone he could ignore. He'd never personally met the tall, lanky, dark-skinned man, but he talked to him on the phone enough to recognize the voice. This was Lincoln Black.
Lincoln Black?
St. Luke's number 2?
Would I say he's number 2?
No, I said, is he Christopher St. Luke's number 2?
Well, kind of.
His path have just brought him over here to this filthy land of sin known as Chicago, and where he is currently interacting with Christopher St. Luke.
Well, yes, good, because everybody's so above everybody else. So nobody's everybody's there for their own reasons, and the world has just contrived the situation for them all to come to this apex moment. And Lincoln Black, which you find out as the story goes on, is basically like if people are familiar with The Dark Tower, if you're familiar with Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, he is the Man in Black, basically. Which I was like, it's so one-to-one, and once we talk about the final character, it'll make more sense. But it's kind of unclear what he is. I think he's supposed to be a principality. Is that what he is? Like an evil angel? Or he's possessed, and to some degree. You find out some of his backstory about why he turned evil, why he turned his back on God, if you will. Or not turned his back on, turned his back on God, but not belief in God. He just decides to serve evil because of something that happens.
He is very much aware of God and the devil.
Yeah, that's like literally every scene between Lincoln Black and the final character, the piece de resistance, Wesley Snipes' character. And Malik Yoba, to his credit, basically does a Wesley Snipes impression.
Okay.
Talon Hunter, supernatural mentor, drives a motorcycle, and then I wrote in parentheses, not in the cold. But yeah, Talon Hunter is basically like he's Blade-esque in demeanor, but he's not Blade because he's not cynical, really. He's actually a very like hopeful character. He probably has more in common with somebody like David Carradine's character from Kung Fu.
But how shall I know if my sorrow is only the echo of self-pity, or my laughter the preening of my own happiness?
If people are familiar with that, it's kind of an old reference even for people my age. That's an old reference, but he's a mentor. He's there he finds Lauren, and he's there to kind of help her find her way, bring her to the path. God has told him through revelation that she is important and that she needs to be involved in the fight. That's why he's there. And he has a very cinematic entrance where you literally, the first thing you hear is the rumbling of his motorcycle. And then he goes and he saves Lauren. Which is the thing. You know what's weird? Like the motorcycle thing? I thought that was going to be like way more important because it's such like, they set it up as to be like this character defining thing. And it's really just brought up one more time as a joke. But yeah, like I said, not in the cold.
It's a prop. But what is Talon's order that he comes from?
I can't remember.
That was, remember I was telling you, like, there's like two things I wanted to do before. I wanted to do that, and then that was the other thing.
Well, he's like from ancient monastic order. They're like paladins. They're like Knights Templar type guys that have been like passing this down through generations. Although it's unclear. Is Talon like an immortal in the sense that he's like very ancient? He's old.
He is mortal. He is mortal, but part of being a part in this order, serving God's will, you get eternal, like extended mortal life and renewed strength in order to carry out his function in this.
Yeah.
So this order, if I think of the name, which will probably happen, I don't know, like a few glasses in, I'll be like, oh shit, that's what it was, right? But this is not for like any sense. This is not for freaking what do they say? Porn watching, ice cream eating softies. Okay, these are people that are carrying out, that sacrifice everything, and carry out God's will.
I'm not an angel. Oh, she said, feeling oddly disappointed, which was stupid. Finding out that the person riding in your car didn't think he was an angel should have been a good thing. Still, at least, this meant Talon wasn't as delusional as she initially. I'm a soldier of God, part of an ancient monastic order, known as the Soldiers of El Elyon, God Most High. Spoke too soon. An ancient monastic order? She repeated, skeptically giving him the side eye. Really? Talon side-eyed her right back. After everything you saw today, that's the part you don't believe? Would you have been more satisfied if I had claimed to be an angel? Lauren rubbed her eyes. Look, she said tiredly, I admit that today has been different, but that doesn't change the fact that what you're saying is really hard to take seriously. I've never even heard of the Soldiers of El whatever. Is that like the Templars or something? The Knights Templar were a crusader order created by the Pope to push the Roman Catholic Church's conquest of the Holy Land, Talon said authoritatively. My order is utterly different. The soldiers of El Elyon, the sea, answer to no earthly power. We are chosen by God himself to do his will on earth, and we go wherever he sends us. That's how I came to Chicago in the first place, and how I found you. Or did you think it was mere coincidence that I just happened to appear in that alley the moment you needed help?
If I can remember the name, I endorse them, but Snipes can probably do that. Speaking of that, what are you getting into tonight?
I was just gonna say, brought to you by tonight. I'm drinking Clyde Mays straight whiskey.
All right.
This is a 94 proof, 47%. Not the cheapest thing I've ever had. It comes from Alabama, from Canuck Ridge, Alabama.
Okay.
Not bad. Not my favorite though. I don't think I would not dive back into this anytime soon. Honestly, it's a little too grandpa's medicine tasting.
Okay.
It's kind of like it goes down pretty smooth. It's got a little bit of a burn. It's got that rye kind of flavor profile. But it has like this weird, like lingering syrup, like cough syrup aftertaste.
Oh,
I don't love. Like you get used to it. You drink a glass and you get used to anything. But I don't love it. I will say this is the first time we've done a show that I've had one, and this is not the cheapest bottle either. This was I think it was like $48. So at $48, I will not be purchasing this again.
Yeah.
What do you get into?
That's too bad, man. That's bad. Sometimes if they're like little syrupy, you throw in like an ice cube or whatever, try to counter it a little bit. Won't hurt. I was feeling a scotch today, so I picked up a Speyburn.
Ooh, okay.
So I was Scotland, the Sperry area, which is in the Highlands, and it's a 10-year bottle, and I don't know. We'll see. Right at the bat, you definitely know that's a scotch.
That's a scotch, boy.
This is a scotch. Well, not just scotch, but like a single malt scotch whiskey. So it's usually a little more bitter, than regular scotch or regular whiskey.
I have seen that. I've seen that on the shelves.
This is also aged in American oak barrels and old sherry barrels. I think I said, yeah. Matured for 10 years in American oak, ex-bourbon, and ex-sherry cask.
What?
Yeah, so, yeah, no, definitely.
Swish it around. That's what he's doing right for the audio only folks. He's swishing it.
Yeah, no, you definitely get that scotch aftertaste, the sting and the lingering.
Yeah.
But
the rubbing alcohol, just that clear, white,
it's different, man. You know what I mean? It's different because you go with the rye, then you feel the peppery aftertaste.
Mm-hmm.
The scotch, it's more of more like straight alcohol.
yeah, it is. It is. It really is. That's back in the day. That's why I didn't never really gravitated towards it. But we talked about this before, not on the podcast, but privately. Paul introduced me to something called Monkey Shoulder. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a very smooth scotch. Very smooth. And it's very reasonably priced as well. It's like $35, I think, a bottle.
Yeah.
And it's
I like to think I'm a connoisseur of, whiskeys and scotches under 40.
Yeah.
This was
You gotta
like
be.
32 to 35 bucks. I was going to get like a Chivas Regal, like a 12-year, but I'm like, you know what? I got my guy down the street cycling a new thing through, and I was like, let's give this a shot. It's the same price as like Chivas Regal. Why not? And no, definitely get a little toffee, butterscotch maybe. I don't
Well, that's
know.
why you just gotta keep. That's why you guys gotta keep drinking.
I've definitely vanilla, and I feel like there's citrus in it, but I don't know.
It's got a
But, you
vanilla and a slight hint of swamp ass in there. It's very bitter.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
like. So
I
we're
can
both.
tell you
We
though,
we both have. We were both kind of like this. These are not recommends.
yeah. Oh, well,
I mean, you've had better things where you did not have this reaction for the same price.
buying this again. I'll not be buying this again.
Okay, so that's what I was saying.
No, you're right. You're right. I want to give it another sip, dude. I just poured one. You're like, You said,
No,
it's
over.
Wait a minute.
It's over, dude.
Wait a minute. But 80 proof, so it's going to get the job done at all intents and purposes for tonight in this discussion.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. For because I'll tell you what, we're not recommending this booze, this alcohol. But maybe the end of that. But Talon of Gods have just begun, dude. It's just begun.
Yes, it has, man.
So let's get into the plot a little bit. What's the first thing you remember of the plot?
Okay. Well, here's another pop quiz question, because I already failed that too. Was it like substance? What's the drug?
I think the drug is called C3X.
C3X.
I
We don't
believe.
know it's called C3X, like getting into it, right? But it's like this kind of like this like green slime in some instances of it, and then other areas it's like a black powder. And so basically, I'm sorry, go for it.
No, go.
Yeah, so basically we get introduced, to the first, which I think it was Lincoln Black, that just basically grabbed this homeless person right at the beginning of the story and just kind of injects this green vial into this homeless person that actually is, and it's like the best homeless person ever in the city of Chicago.
And what if I were to offer you something better? He asked, reaching his gloved hand inside his heavy winter coat to pull out a small glass bottle filled with a liquid so bright green it almost seemed to glow in the dim light. Something new? Lenny recoiled at once, swearing to himself. Just his luck. The one bite he got tonight, and it was a pusher. Unlike a lot of people he'd met on the street, though, Lenny didn't truck with drugs. He'd had enough chemicals sprayed on him in Nam to last 5 lifetimes. Nah, man, he said, scooting backwards farther into the shelter of the bridge. I don't touch that stuff. It's free, the man said, tossing the green vial casually in his hand. Try it. The first hit was always free. Nah, Lenny said again, backing away. I'm clean, man. I don't do that. Even if he had been a druggie, he wouldn't have touched the stuff in the man's hand. Lenny had never seen anything like the green liquid in the bottle, but it reeked of rotten eggs. Yet another reason to get out of here quick, before things got weirder. But as Lenny pushed himself off the pavement to walk away, the man in black grabbed his arm. I think there's been a misunderstanding, the stranger said softly. That wasn't a request. Lenny swore and yanked, trying in vain to escape. It should have been easy. He'd been a soldier once, and still made a point to keep himself in decent shape, despite his life on the street. But the man in black was freakishly strong. No matter what Lenny did, the stranger moved him as easily as he'd move a child, letting go of his arm to grab Lenny by the jaw. He started to squeeze then, forcing Lenny's mouth open with one hand as he popped the lid off the vial with the other. Eyes wide, Lenny lashed out with his feet and fists, but the man just seemed to absorb the blows as if they were nothing as he poured the green substance down Lenny's throat.
You know,
Yeah, he's known.
like
He's known.
prior war vet, doesn't take any pills, is off the stuff, trying to get together, but still just struggle with everything.
Lauren and him are good friends.
Huh?
Lauren and him are good friends. She knows him.
We're good friends, yeah. So this guy gets completely like lit up, and it goes, and takes him into the hospital, and then this basically like literally the catalyst of the whole story that just gets everything going. Where Lauren exposed that. So I mean,
well, because it starts like the movie, like or not the movie. Oh my God, I'm already going there. No, the book. The book is structured like a movie. So you have like a cold open, where you have like this homeless guy. You learn about him. He's a war vet, like everything Paul just said about him, and he's given this drug by who we find out is Lincoln Black. But the thing with, and this is like part of the larger plot of the story, is that they're basically tainting regular drugs with this C3X to expedite like the being able to be possessed. Basically, what you find out in the story is that possession takes a long time. It's very hard work on demons. They have to like really be there to influence you and get you to give over to it. But
it's a long game, and also depends on the other person to be open and willing to accept them to enter their soul. Right?
Exactly.
So
But with this drug that's like infused with evil and sulfur specifically, it expedites the process, and they lose their free will basically, and then a demon can just take over them. That's what you find out. So the homeless vet is the first person that happens to, and then Lauren. So there's that cold open with him kind of being accosted and given the drug, and then he gets thrown in an alley. And then you are introduced to Lauren, who's at the hospital, and she's like gives her little spiel about private care versus public care, and why she's an altruistic person, and why she wants to help her community, and yada yada. And then she goes out, she sees her old buddy, this homeless vet, who apparently she's good friends with, but she leaves him on the street for some reason.
Yeah.
And and then he attacks her because he transforms into a demon, and then that's when Talon Hunter comes. Like this stuff happens very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is within audiobook time, like 25 minutes. Like all of this stuff happens like right in the first 25 minutes of the story, because it's very like front loaded and back loaded, and then in the middle it's all like quote unquote character development, but it's really just a kind of just like a lot of like religious philosophizing and stuff. Like that's really what's in the middle of the book. But so that happens to her, and then this kind of awakens something in her because she gets the drug spilled on her skin. Mm-hmm. So it awakens something in her, the spiritual energy that I guess they don't ever. Did they ever like explicitly say, has Talon been watching her? Like, what is the deal? Like, what? Like, because it's a very movie convention of like, oh, this thing happens to her, and it's like it has that contrivance of a movie where he just shows up in time.
So as we find out, like throughout the novel, that Talon's whole marching orders is he'll get some indication of this is where I need to go, and this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And then constantly waits for the cues or the signs from God to carry out His will, right? So, at this point, and then even throughout the rest of the novel, you never find out. But at some point prior to it getting on paper, he had assigned to go to Chicago. That's where he was going to go to Chicago, and then that's where he encounters this. And then when he witnesses Lauren not only getting exposed, to the drug, but well, he didn't even know like really what the drug was, but just her presence, her caring, like felt like that. This is who this is what I'm supposed to meet, and I'm just going to like follow that. So that was really like the only explanation of that, like why he came into what made because I think when Lincoln Black and like Christopher St. Luke found out that she was exposed to it and then nothing happened, that's what got them all up in a tizzy. And
that's why they're interested in getting her, which is something that like takes a long time to come to fruition. That like them realizing like that's what they need to pay attention to her. It's like very deep into the book. It's like probably 2/3 into the book almost. Yeah, I mean, what's your next big plot point?
Well, I mean, kind of going, because even at the from that point on to when she witnesses something that in her medical profession, and she's such a
Yeah.
professional, and what is that to what she's literally gone to hell, or at least in the other world, and then that um, Archaeum or whatever, that like head angel that also sounds like Blade, right? Still in denial because she's such a smart, science-based, medical professional.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but like everything over there, the whole story is like the next plot point is just all like filler to get up, like to the last two chapters of the book. So
I know it's that crazy. It's that crazy. Like like I said, it's front loaded and back loaded. Like the plot stuff is paper thin. I mean, it's like it's in the beginning and then it's at the end. They come back at the end. And the end is like the beginning is clunky and the end is clunky because they're trying to shove so much stuff into the beginning and the end of the story. And all the stuff in the middle is kind of a lot of it's ephemeral. A lot of it's very forget. It's like it's hard even now. I mean, I listened to this almost twice in the past week. I'm struggling to like remember some of the stuff that happens in the story. Because like the next big moment is when she has to go. Well, it's like Talon kind of bothering her. It's like this kind of mentor,
like unsolicited, mentorship, right?
The whole situation was so bizarre and surreal. Lauren didn't realize she hadn't actually said anything yet until the man stepped off his bike and dipped his head in greeting. Lauren. The sound of her name spoken in that calm voice made her stiffen in alarm. How do you know my name? The man arched a dark eyebrow, amused. You were yelling it at Lenny. Oh, she said, biting her lip. Right. Well, that still doesn't explain what you're doing here. How did you find me? I followed the ambulance to the hospital, he said, shrugging like ambulance stalking was no big deal. After that, I followed your father's car. I would have let you sleep longer, but our enemy is moving quickly, and I wanted to introduce myself before they struck again. By the time he finished, Lauren was no longer sure giving him the benefit of the doubt was a good idea. What do you mean, enemy? This might be easier to explain if I told you my name, the stranger said, walking across the street and holding out his hand. I'm called Talon, and I work for a higher power. Lauren shoved her own hands deeper into her pockets. Is that a euphemism or a really bad company name? It's the truth, he said, lowering his offered hand but still keeping it where Lauren could see. I came to Chicago following a sign. At the time, I didn't understand why. Now I'm sure I was sent here to find you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also coming from a tone and a place very, very similar to her father, who's a preacher, right? And so it's already not wanted. But I mean, I guess the next like big plot point is like the setup for the surprise, city of Chicago and the Chicago Police Department are crooked as fuck. So like it's really like the next big plot point is setting up, Christopher St. Luke and the new police chief that came in there that helped.
They're working together. They're working together to cover up what is going on because Christopher St. Luke wants to push this drug that does this thing, and he's trying to basically, like in, I guess, a way to put it, he's trying to open a portal of hell, basically. He's literally digging a hole to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally digging a hole to hell. And that's what he's trying to do, and he's trying to use this drug to facilitate that to happen. By basically possessing everyone, and that's like kind of the conflict with the characters is like, oh, we can't just kill these people, which comes in the third act of like how they're going to resolve the situation, what the idea they come up with.
Right.
Yeah, because there's the stuff with Christopher St. Luke and Corrigan, and they kind of, and that's when the deal comes in, where he's like, for some reason, Corrigan's like at first is like, oh, I don't know. maybe we're going too far, and then he's like, I'll give you everything I own.
A little bit for it too, because like the Corrigan going to St. Luke's mansion party thing, this elite party that he's having, is also the introduction where we find out more about like Lincoln Black too, right? So this is like a good part to kind of like talk into this, right?
Actually, yes, because this was the most. I was like, if Wesley Snipes wrote any part of this book, it is this part. He's like, there's naked women with sushi on them, and it's the craziest party ever.
Stepping inside was like walking into Hollywood's ideal of debased opulence. Everywhere Corrigan's eyes fell, beautiful people, male and female, were lounging on antique furniture, gazing up at the fat, graying bodies of Chicago's elite with the sort of overt sexual excitement only lots of money could buy. White-coated waiters circled through the rooms, offering guests silver trays laden with flutes of champagne, delicate French pastries, and mountains of coke. In one parlor, two huge men were trying to kill each other on the billiard table while a circle of gentlemen in tuxes cheered them on, yelling out bets and trading huge rolls of cash every time a punch landed. In another, a pair of identical girls lay naked on the dining table, their slender bodies covered in a rainbow of beautifully cut sushi that guests remove with long silver chopsticks. The excessive debauchery made Corrigan's pulse quicken, but not for the usual reasons. He'd sold his military services to dictators and kings for decades now. Sins of the flesh were just part of doing business. Even to his jaded eyes, though, this was a party for the ages. But he expected nothing less from the home of Christopher St. Luke.
Oh, dude. So yeah, so we talked about the episode. Like Jefferson, Lauren Jefferson has this ex-boyfriend Will Tannenbaum, right? So she's been attacked already at this point by the druggie, and then Will Tannenbaum comes in, to do the investigation. He wants to see what's going on because he's thinking this is connected to like there's some other things. Maybe there's some bad batch of drugs going on here. There's counter gangs. So Will Tannenbaum, like a street detective, Chicago Vice, is on this, and then that's where it gets a little dicey for us, where we're supposed to be, ex-boyfriend, Kurt Cobb coming in and doing this, and you get this very cringe-worthy exchange between them and both their inner dialogues. Like, this is the first time I've seen her. I wanted her to say nice. For a brief moment, I thought we would go back. I could have him drive me back to my place, but then I knew that'd be a bad idea.
Yeah.
It was like cringe ass shit.
Oh, and the book is littered with stuff like that.
But from start to finish, my man, right? But then you follow this like little this little entanglement right here, right? It goes a little Tannenbaum, and then it segues up to his boss, where he goes to meet his boss, which is Victor Corrigan, and then we get this whole backstory on Victor Corrigan, who's had like the most sad and depressing child upbringing ever in the history of any novel. In the history of every like you read about like Corrigan, just like Oliver Twist, shut up, you little pussy. Like, hey, let me talk about this guy who grew up in war, who was a refugee to another country. That country went to war, and then he was a refugee to go to another country, Eastern Europe, and then they had a civil war. They moved in. Finally, he became a mercenary and then found a way to get to the U.S. to Chicago. Work up to the police force and root for the Bears, and then get his way into becoming the police chief and adopting not only this bomb ass deep dish pizzas or kibasas. Actually, I don't think deep dish is good, but traditional is good. But anyways, that's not what this is about. Right? And then and then adopts the accent that's so endearingly portrayed by Malik Yoba. All right. Right. So Corrigan, that's basically what happens, though, right, Shaun? Like, the homeless guy gets over there to infected the hospital. That's where Talon comes into the play to meet there, save Lauren, and then take him there. Will comes to investigate, so that's how we know about this. And then we follow Will going to the police station, and then he starts giving the backdrop about Victor Corrigan. We go to the main narrator going about his background, and then Corrigan, there's some other inconsequential bullshit that happened in between Will leaving from the hospital and then
Yeah, I mean, because it's all stuff between him.
But this is where it gets good, right? So Corrigan basically is telling Will, because Will is picking up on some shit, putting in that overtime. Corrigan's not about that. You cut that OT out. You cut that out. I'm making a new mark here. I'm turning this around. I'm getting this in the black. Getting this out of
Actually,
black.
that was I started laughing that it would get into the minutia of like the budget of the police department.
Yeah. Like, awesome. Corrigan, he's not, he's pinching dimes, man. He's pinching dimes. He's looking out
But
for
we
the people.
find out why though. He's trying to
Huh?
keep Will off the case, Paul. As
He's-
as is discovered, because Will is like one of these people that apparently all these supernatural forces are aware of.
Mhm.
Because of his like his moral fiber, his value system.
He's that good. He's
That goddamn good.
He's a handsome Jewish man next door, and he's a goddamn good cop there. Okay? So, Corrigan goes to the party.
Yeah.
Christopher St. Luke, who's the most influential, affluent, fucking billionaire, and also a devil. He's also a devil.
Well,
Find that out.
He's not actually a devil. Like he's possessed by a demon.
No, he is legit a devil.
No, because when okay, we're gonna skip to the end. He goes to like basically the epilogue. There's like a mini little epilogue where you see what to set up because this is supposed to be the first of a trilogy. So they set up like St. Luke basically coming back. There's a line in there where he talks about the demon like grabs St. Luke's dead body.
Then send me back, so I can build on it. St. Luke snapped. The voice in the blood sighed. About that, I'm afraid you've been a little rough on the meat puppet we gave you to use, now that you've dragged it with you into death. It'll take a great deal of effort to send you back. I didn't drag it into death. That little sea groupie pushed me. Same difference. The blood said idly. I'll still have to send you back. That's hard enough when your meat sack's alive. Yours is dead. Do you know how much blood that takes? How much sacrifice? How do I know I'll get my investment back? Because I'm the one with the power, St. Luke reminded him. You might be a king in hell, but in the mortal world, you're just another demon. I, on the other hand, am one of the richest men in the world with connections all over the globe. His face split in a grin. You can't afford to let me die. That was the truth, and they both knew it. Very well, the blood rumbled. But this is your final chance. Fail us again, and the next time you die, Zariel will leave you in that mortal shell to rot.
And drags him back into himself.
Yeah.
So I think St. Luke is not. I think he's like a possessed person. Like he was probably like some rich guy that gave himself over to the devil for his own gain, and then ends up becoming like a pawn in this larger scheme to bring hell to earth.
Yeah, but then it ends up with him trying to find a new person to have, basically like a new sleeve, like to have like moving forward. And
Okay.
it's a very hard thing to do in this universe for them to do, but it's worth the investment because St. Luke was able to bridge the gap to hell on Earth more than anybody can since the beginning.
Yeah, and they talk about like St. Luke's resources. Like he's such a powerful, influential person. Like if you were to take control of somebody, you need somebody like that to actually get this plan in motion because you need somebody with those kind of resources to do what you're going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
He's having this big. He has obviously got the most banging mansion on the nice side of Chicago.
Yeah.
You got all kinds of other politicians up there, athletes, whatnot. Everyone's coming up there, and it sounds like a freaking 1980s, like Freddie Mercury party. You know, if they should have went the extra mile and said, and they were midget people, physically challenged people walking around with trays of cocaine on their head. Like, that's they should have. Why at that point? Like what they're talking about, like everything, right? Is like St. Luke.
It was so funny because it wants to be like this very edgy, provocative party, but they clearly took like a chaste view of how to write this book. So the most provocative thing is that there's naked women with sushi on their bodies. Like that's the sexiest. Like that's the most like sexually charged thing they're willing to say that's going on at the party. That's the one thing that like stuck out in my mind the most because it's like one of the first lines when Corrigan's walking in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this party had everything.
Everything.
Women laying naked on tables covered in sushi.
Yeah. Although that made me laugh for another reason, because it's been an ongoing bad joke I had at work for like, I don't know, the last 6 years. Where I'll go off and be like, hey, what do you want to do for lunch? Be like, hey, what's that one joint where you can eat sushi off a naked person? No one ever has the answer because it doesn't exist in Philadelphia.
Oftentimes, it's not the food that brings the sensuality, it's the presentation. I'm here with my friends Alexis, Martha, and Johnny, and we're sitting down to a meal that's called Nyotai Mori, which in Japanese means female body presentation. It's an art form in Japan, and I hate to say the words dig in, especially with something that's as beautiful as this, but that's essentially what you do is just go ahead and dig in, and yes, you are meant to eat both off your plate and also off of our living body sculpture that's in front of us.
Oh my heavens, you can't go wrong with this.
Maybe it should.
I know.
I think that's racist. That's racist. You gotta like respect culture. You gotta respect what people want to do. It's also sexist. You know,
Yeah,
it's like I'm pro.
It's anti-pro sex work too, but you know.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Yeah, but that's for things that that don't fly with a Talon Hunter. You know what I mean?
No, Talon Hunter would be like, no. He would lift the girl up. The sushi would fall off her body. He would like cover her in a blanket, and he'd be like, respect yourself. Respect yourself. You are a child of God.
Indeed. But Victor Corrigan gets to this mansion, all this stuff happening, sushi on naked bitches, everything. And then he gets checked by the inverted doorman, which ends up being Lincoln Black. Who knows who Corrigan is? He just starts like fucking with him. And then and he gives he gives him kind of like a Blade-esque type of voice too. So it's like you have like a good Blade with like a more like with softer, like lower grumbling undertones, like yes, well, yeah. Then you got Lincoln Black, who's a little harsher on the end of every other word.
Oh, when I was casting this movie in my mind while I was listening to the story, I was like, Wesley Snipes needs to play both of these characters.
Oh man, well actually, I got something for that. Don't let me forget about that, like alternate casting. Like,
okay, all right.
About that. But yeah. And then he goes on and takes up to Christopher St. Luke, who like is described like the silver fox chisel. He's got naked baby falling off him as he stands up to go take Corrigan. And then that's where he's like, "Follow me, Detective Corrigan. I'm so glad you can attend my party. Let's go." They go down this elevator. Him, Lincoln, Black, and Victor go down there, and then they start walking, talking about my dubious schemes for everything. You've been impressing me. You've been doing this. So you want more? And this is the part where where it's just like if you like you're laughing because you listen to it. You're like, oh yeah, the way he does that stupid Chicago voice for Victor Corrigan, because he looks basically making his picture like you've been doing some shady things for me as of yet. Been doing little things, been turning your way the other way for some of my operations to expand. I appreciate that. Now I'm ready for you to take the next step. And then the way it's narrated is like, oh, yeah, whatever it takes, yeah. I'll be there. Like, it just like kills it. It just kills it a little bit.
Well, because they take the time to set up like a nuanced person, and then you're just delivered a cartoon character that's like, oh, okay. Okay.
I'll do the thing. I'll do the thing.
To entice Corrigan to take the next step, they make this ridiculous deal where St. Luke is like, I will sign over my fortune and everything I own to you if you do this.
You continue, like,
and he's just and Paul had said before, he was just like, well, as long as I get it in writing, like that's that's what he's stuck on. He's like, well, can I get a contract? And St. Luke's like, yeah, of course.
But first, though, Shaun, like we gotta skip over. So, like, as he's talking to him about this, because right now, like, the reason why Corrigan, like, we're alluded to find out, like, why he was able to come up with the police chief, is because he was looking the other way, so St. Luke can fund these other operations, push out this drug, the substance. So, like, leading up to going downstairs this elevator, the secret, closed off part in his mansion from the rest of the party. He's talking about this drug in great and painful detail, like you said earlier, like a goddamn Bond villain, right?
Yes.
Talking about how this drug specifically will help you manipulate mind, and he goes on this whole fucking spiel about manipulate mind, control everything, get people to think things that aren't there. And this is what we'll do. We'll have everybody consuming this, the C2X or whatever, and then we'll control them all. It's like, but here's what I want you to do for you, and I'll sign it all by my. Oh, really?
To be clear, Corrigan said, slowly, if I do what you want here in Chicago, you'll make me your heir, the person who inherits this. He swept his arms upward, indicating the mansion overhead. All of it. All of it, St. Luke agreed. You won't even have to wait until I'm dead. I'm actually planning to retire soon. Consider this operation my going-away present. It was too good to be true. Corrigan knew that meant he shouldn't trust it. Hell, with that hovering darkness over his shoulder, no sane man would. But he was having trouble fighting against his desire for it to be true. After all, wasn't he owed a stroke of good fortune? He who'd worked so hard to pull himself out of the gutter? Who'd thrown away pride countless times to court the same billionaire who was standing in front of him, offering the impossible. No, it was past time for Victor Corrigan's ship to come in. That said, he couldn't get aboard by being stupid. You can't cash in wishful thinking. I want it in writing, he said, crossing his arms. All of it. Of course, St. Luke replied. We'll draw everything up nice and legal for my protection as well as yours. We both have to do our part in this agreement, and I want you to be clear. None of this is worth a dime if you can't keep my operations going until the end. If this fails, I fail. And if I fail, you certainly fail. Lincoln let out a chilling laugh at that, which Corrigan ignored. And what end is that? You'll know, St. Luke promised. Believe me, when it comes, you'll know.
You gotta get it right. It's just like this motherfucker just went through this whole spiel about like pushing the shit to control everybody. Like,
yeah.
But he's like, and you growing up in war-torn area, country to country, being a mercenary your whole fucking life, until you finally made it big to got over to Chicago to become a police chief, and now you're going into this.
Hey, like some people think that like being the last to go is the best position you can be in.
Yeah.
Like because he's like thinking about like because he basically reveals like this is an apocalyptic thing that he's trying to do.
Right.
And he just and it's the typical devil's bargain. Oh, but you'll be on the inside. You're gonna be one of the guys. You're gonna be one of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Corrigan, like all that you've done for us, you're in.
Yeah.
And Corrigan's like, oh, all right.
Okay, then. Get that shit writing, Get like a fucking notary or the guy with the fucking stamp,
You got one of those naked girls down there. You check them out.
Then we're talking. But now that before he said a deal too, they go through a whole series of like these deformed people, right? And just like if a Bond villain describes like why it's so interesting to him to have these people. I got one guy going insane, gnawing his fucking head on the wall. I got these other people eating people. I got like all this weird shit, right? And then the big reveal, which is just basically he's like they describe it initially as like a black box, but it had something to do with like the alternate world, like when you're reading it, because like looking into it. He's like, it was like the most terrifying thing. And so after talking to Corrigan about all this mind control that he can do with using this substance, and then after seeing his whole collection of humans in his basement,
Yeah, test subjects.
and
You
then
gotta see if
saying,
it works.
I will give you all of my money. And your response, let me get it in writing.
Well,
Right?
hey, Corrigan probably saw that and he was like, well, you've done more testing than the COVID vaccine. Anyways, so that's what all those people are, right? Because they're test cases to see, like, get the right balance between the drug and the sulfur stuff and what will turn people, and it drives some people insane, and it doesn't. Some people are unaffected by it, and what is, like, how do we make this work? And by the time the story starts, they've figured it out. But apparently, for some reason, St. Luke still has these people in his basement. Like, you're like, okay.
But they never did anything with that, right? So all that was just like prop up that, oh yeah, guess what?
He's evil.
There is eccentric, and he's fucking evil.
He's evil. Yeah, because they
Yeah.
hold it. They hold the St. Luke stuff back like you don't fucking know the first time he opens his mouth.
Right.
Like like the book. Like, this is definitely a criticism of the book. Like, the book is so predictable.
It's not one time you're reading this where you're like, what is going to happen next?
Like, you are 10 steps ahead of the story.
Thriller. They say it's a thriller, man, but it's like every fucking time.
You are always 10 steps ahead of the story. Like, you always are. So every reveal never lands like a reveal. It lands like a foregone conclusion. You're like, oh yeah, of course. Like, that's, yeah.
Yeah. Or really? That's what you did with it?
Do you think it's like also
real quick about criticisms? I forgot. My first criticism too. Like, they fucked up the references. Was that on purpose? When they're talking about when Lauren Jefferson's going on, like, what do you mean, like, possession? Like, Exorcist? I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul doesn't come from the Exorcist. Where does that line come from? Where's that quote come from, Shaun?
Well, it's from the Evil Dead. The Evil Dead series.
You goddamn right it is.
I'm trying to think, though, if it's also in The Exorcist. It might also be in there.
That's like one of the things I did. It's not.
It's not? No, okay. So it's for
Evil Dead. That is Sam Raimi, baby.
Dr. what? Dr. Idiot. No, I'm just...
No, we could blame everything we don't like about the book. I decided.
On Ray Norman?
No, it's Ray Norman's fault. Everything that we do like, or like a cheese factory, because like what got me through this whole thing was just envisioning Snipes
writing it. Yes.
And like if they had someone else like narrate it, and he didn't do like a good job like mimicking, I don't think I could have gotten through it. I was going to save that for later, but I'm doing it now.
I think like Snipes, like, his involvement was like Ray Norman would call him and be like, what do you think Talon would say? And then Snipes would hit him with the quip, motherfucker, you come to a fight? This is a sword fight, motherfucker.
Screw you and your fancy judo moves, Black bellowed, narrowly escaping Talon's grab to try and put him into a submission hold. This is a sword fight, asshole. I'll fight back when you give me something to swing against, Talon said, smiling. So far, all you've done is flail around like a mad dog. I'll show you mad, Black yelled, swinging wildly, his black sword flying so fast it vanished into the dim light. I'll show you death.
Or my favorite part of the book, when he appears in the back of Lauren's car. And this is actually kind of close to what happens next. So he appears, like, he goes to Lauren's house, tries to mentor her. Lauren's still living at her dad's house, I think, even though they don't get along.
No. So after Lauren got into the hospital from being exposed by the homeless guy that got infected by this drug, her dad flipped out and demanded that he come back to.
Yes, she come back to his house. You're right. And then she ends up borrowing his car because she won't get on Talon's motorcycle. And then Talon appears in the back seat of the car and gives like his spiritual spiel about belief and forgiveness, and he explains a little bit of his relationship with Lincoln Black and why he doesn't just dismiss Lincoln Black, because he's trying to save him. in his own weird way, right? And then it's revealed like at some point he's like, yeah, how much farther are you going to drive around with no gasoline? With God, anything is possible. Like,
God doesn't always speak through bolts from the sky, he said quietly. Those who do his work and keep the faith often find their lives are full of small miracles. Oh, please, Lauren said, rolling her eyes. You mean like a child's laugh or the kindness of strangers? He smiled. Kindness is always a miracle, but God's hand moves in more practical, straightforward ways as well. For example, your gas tank has been empty since we left the hospital, and yet your car is still running. Don't be stupid, Lauren snapped. My tank is not... The words trailed off as her eyes found the gas gauge. In our rush to get to the hospital this morning, she hadn't even looked at the Buick's tank. Now, sure enough, the red needle was well below the E. She was wondering how on earth the old gas guzzler was still running when the car's engine suddenly shuddered and stalled. Damn, Lauren hissed, pumping the gas, but it was no use. The car was dead. Thankfully, she'd already pulled over to kick Talon out. So at least they weren't broken down in the middle of the street. She couldn't stay here on a yellow line, though. So she switched on the emergency blinkers and coasted them into the parking lot of an old fast food joint where a perfect downhill parking spot was miraculously available. She regretted her word choice the moment that thought crossed her mind. Talon was looking too smug already as it was.
to prove to Lauren that the power of God, that God exists, they have been driving around in a car with no gas because of the power of God.
The Chicago winner.
It is the funniest fucking and the reason
that we're in less than a quarter tank.
and the reason why Talon gets in the car in the first place, she's like, "Why didn't you just drive your motorcycle there?" And he's just like, "It's cold," and that's like, and the motorcycle is only brought up one other time at the end of the book. But I think
when he steals his neighbor's motorcycle, because also in the Chicago winter, other people are riding motorcycles around. You know.
You just get used to that shit, you know. I used to know hillbillies too, Paul. They're fucking stupid.
I suppose, man.
That's like my cousins. Like my cousins would be the kind of assholes to be like, "Yeah, dude, I fucking got on my dirt bike and rode in the snow."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the next plot point after that, man, is after that, you know, that deal was made with, you know, St. Luke and Corrigan. When Corrigan leaves to go back, oh God, I'm gonna be fucking rich. Blah, 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 blah. Like.
Can you believe this? I got it in writing.
The sidebar was like Lincoln, St. Luke, and just immediately he's like, that dummy thinks he's actually going to get all your money. He is a useful idiot for now, but let him think that. We need him to think that. We need his purpose. He serves a purpose. And then at this point, this is my favorite part of the book, where they, he tells like, oh yeah, basically he's telling St. Luke that Talon is in town because they know about Talon. And they've been around for a while, right? He's like, what? Did you not tell me that earlier?
Yeah, they're like,
this part of the night. He's like,
they're like stressed out. They're like, oh, Talon's gonna fuck everything up. Like, you know how Talon is. You know this motherfucker doesn't stop.
Yeah, but with St. Luke is saying like, why did you tell me earlier? He's like, was I supposed to not get late?
Yeah, that's about as yes.
like a bad guy. Like, how do you? Why don't you tell me the one thing that I just like, you know, threatened, decide that I'm going to put in writing all of my wealth, you know, to this this mercenary, you know, police chief, right? And all to this whole spiel, you know, at this point it's probably like in the wee hours of the morning, and now you're telling me the guy that could, you know, ruin everything, fuck everything up is here? I need to get some sleep.
Yeah, you would think that. Well, because see, for Lincoln Black, Paul, this is just standard procedure. Him and Talon have been doing this forever.
We've been doing this a long time.
Which goes back to the gunslinger and the Man in Black from the Stephen King series, The Dark Tower. Every time they have a confrontation is basically the same conversation that the Man in Black has with the gunslinger in that series, and except not written well.
We've done this for a long time, Black. Long enough for me to know some of your history. What happened to your mother? Black was back on him in a second, grabbing him around the throat. You leave my mother out of this, he snarled. Why? Talon choked out. She's where all this started. Your mother was lynched for a crime she didn't commit. And rather than blame the men who did it, you blamed everything else. You don't know Jack, Black said, shoving him backwards. I blame everyone for her death, 'cause everyone's to blame. You claim your God can do anything? Well, he didn't do squat. When a woman whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong skin color swung for a robbery she didn't even know about before the sheriff rode up to her house. He could still remember it clear as day. The dust, the hot sun, the horse's sharp hooves falling on him as he tried to stop the men from taking his mother away. As always, the memory made him want to hurt things. That was fine. Talon was right here, and no one deserved it more.
Because it's just so, everything is just so on the nose, and like even the exposition of like when you find out Lincoln Black's past, right? Like you find out that his mother was lynched, and like, you know, and I'm assuming in the 1800s or the early 1900s, and that's the thing that, like, you know, turns him to evil. But the person that's Talon Black just says it. Like he's like, let me give you a rundown of why you feel the way you do. Mm-hmm. So that we, the audience, can know the information. Like that's what it's there for. Mm-hmm. You would, you know, like that's what it's there for. But every confrontation has that kind of revelatory thing about Lincoln Black, because Talon is still kind of shrouded in mystery pretty much the entire time. Like you don't learn very much about Talon, other than that he's stoic.
That he wrote in the book, like if like where another part would be when they're at Lauren's like father's house and he's in the backyard with his shirt off, exercising, meditating.
Yeah.
That whole like cringe thing with the sword. Hold the sword, wield it. They're like, oh my God.
That's another.
What is this foreshadowing next? What are we doing now? Is Lauren going to be okay?
That is definitely a Dr. Snipes thing. Dr. Snipes probably called up Ray Norman and was just like, listen, bro, have him in the backyard with his shirt off, meditating. And then there's even like passages about how he feels about certain disciplines of like martial arts, which comes like towards the end of the book for some reason.
Yeah.
But like, yes, yeah. I mean, like the whole thing with Lauren and the sword, that's when it's the first time it's brought up is during that part of the story. Another foregone conclusion, because they're basically just telling Lauren the entire time from the moment he meets her. He's telling her that. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, you're a warrior. You're a spiritual warrior. You're here to fight this evil. And she's like, I don't believe in evil. I don't believe in demons.
Strong, smart, educated doctor.
And I'm only 27 years old.
And I'm 27 years old. 27 years old, man. Yeah. But after that St. Luke party, man, that's when Lincoln starts starts going back after Lauren, and then shit starts unraveling.
And the way he gets
like the big the after that, dude, it's just like
there's one big sequence that happens, which is Lincoln Black trying to get to Lauren, basically trying to get Lauren and Talon to come to him, which is when he goes to the hospital and infects all the burn victims. And they all turn into demons.
That was a failed attempt to like kill Lauren.
Yes.
Like what he get?
But he did it to lure them out. Like he knows that they're there, and he wants them in a place where he can get to them. Because that's Lincoln Black shows up there. Talon and Lincoln Black have a extended conversation about, oh, we've been doing this forever. Go fuck yourself. Like, right. I'm gonna get you someday. Why do you keep trying to change me? Call me Lincolns. Why do you keep calling me Black? Like, this kind of like character stuff that is just like not interesting. It's just like, okay, whatever.
seeing like two buff dudes like circling around like a panhandle like came interview like what do it like that's
Yeah,
it
like
doesn't read well. It might be able to pull off like 20 years well like visually like
yeah,
to
I
see
can
that.
see because the
Like
entire time listening to this, I am seeing the Wesley Snipes movie
yeah
because of the way it's written. I'm actually so in that sense, it's successful. Like because I'm seeing the movie. I am watching the movie. I know who Wesley Snipes is. I have my fan casting for every character, like in my mind's eye. You know, like like outside of time and space or whatever. Like the people that you think would fill the roles.
right.
And yeah, I was just like I can see it.
Right.
It doesn't make it better, honestly.
No.
Honestly, just because the material isn't there, and this book does not have enough action and propulsive stuff. Because it like in fairness to them, they're trying to write like a spiritual tome. They want like Christian people to be like positively affected by this. Let's give Christian people something that like
And
their blade.
They will get a little bit of that like out of that book, right? So a certain story, if you
Yeah.
want this, so that's kind of like whereas like described as like in like some outlets where they're saying like as a spiritual thriller, and
Yeah.
it's not like so spiritual threat. Okay, so like loosely the subject is about God and the devil. Again on that they start every like and it's very corny. They start every chapter off. I know I said at the beginning, but like with a
The
Bible
verse.
verse
Yeah.
what's going like on out there, but it's not like. And I don't even know if like a spiritual thriller is like actually like a thing. You know what I mean? Like you ever like growing up like the shit that would give me nightmares. The fuck we read at the Hilltop, the Catechist, like all these like like horror stories of the devil and whatnot. Like it's like
Well,
one of the
in
one
in
thing just
pop
being like grown up Catholic, right? But
in,
like
in popular fiction, the biggest like Christian thriller series,
Twilight.
no, is a series called no, that's Mormon. That's Mormon. That's gross. Like it's called is Left Behind. There's a series called Left Behind. They made a few like really cheaply produced, low budget movies that were based on the series, like in the 2000s. Actually, Nicolas Cage. They did like a reboot. They tried to reboot the series. Nicolas Cage starred in the reboot of the series because he needs money because of tax problems.
Nice.
But yeah, that is like the other than this, in my awareness, I'm sure there are though. I guarantee you there are. I guarantee you there's a whole subgenre of stuff that is just like this.
What is a spiritual thriller versus a thriller?
Just involving God, demons, angels. That's it. Like what else is the well like what's the, like that's all it is. Like you could make a secular version of this story. It's fucking Stephen King's The Dark Tower. Like that's a secular version of the story, which is a good story. Like and it's also very much deeper. There's a lot of meta levels. It's about storytelling. It's about a lot of things, but essentially it is about the same topic, which is good versus evil, white versus black, not skin color, everybody, but like it's like that is like its central thesis. Like that is what it's about. It's like how to overcome evil, and I think Talon of God, if this continues as a series, would be that is what its central thesis is. Like it's just very basic. It's very simple. And this is made for basically like this like I was reading reviews for this on like Goodreads and Amazon and Audible and all that stuff. I was just going through reviews. Middle-aged Christian women of all denominations love this book.
Yeah.
Love it. Because like you said, it's like appeals to the soap opera.
For the big finale that like we get into it, man. Like there's all that corny shit and they just eat that up.
Well,
They
it's
really-
like a soap opera. Like you said, it's like a soap opera. It's like a bad procedural that you would watch on CBS. Like that is the quality of it. Like, and that is who watches that shit. That's who watches network television procedural dramas. So this is structured very much like that. Very much like that. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Like you could see the Netflix series.
With that target audience in mind, man, that segs right into like the next big like plot point when Lincoln Black finds out that Robbie, Lauren's brother, is actually pushing this drugs for him. So he snoops him up, gets him drugged up, and has like Lauren and Talon come right to him, where Talon gets to make his sacrifice. Just let him save, then you can do whatever you want with me. And then they had the line, you mean I can do whatever I want with you, and you won't fight back?
Yeah.
You and I have unfinished business to settle. He jerked his arm up, lifting Robbie clear off his feet. You want to save this idiot? Here's my deal. You put down your sword and swear to your precious God to let me do whatever I want to you without fighting back. Until sunrise or death, whichever comes first. You do that, and I'll let all your little buddies here go free, no strings attached. The kid, the doctor girl, what's left of Mr. Detective there. They can all leave this place no worse for wear. Hell, if they hurry, they might even be able to get out of town before the fun starts. How's that for generosity? Absolutely not, Lauren cried, whirling on Talon before he could say a word. You are not sacrificing yourself for us. You don't even know if you can trust him. Oh, he definitely can't trust me, Black said. But that's beside the point. See, if Talon there doesn't do what I want, baby Robbie's going to be short one head. And my boys down there? He nodded down at the warehouse where, sure enough, several of the masked workers had stopped processing the orders and were now standing ready with their guns out. Get to take a 15-minute party break. I'm happy either way, so what's it gonna be, holy man? You or the kid? Choose quick, though. And all for this generous doesn't stick around for long.
And then you're like, man, some gay shit is about this is starting to get good.
If this book had any integrity.
Then you get let down again. You get let down again there, right? And so then it just basically
It's just a fight. It's a blade fight. Yeah. It's like he turns into Blade. Talon turns into Blade, and they have a fight.
They don't even. It's not even like good.
No, it's not.
But like the thing, yeah. So like, say Luke's like plan works great. Everyone pushed up the drugs, and the city of Chicago is just fucking lit with all these once these people get possessed and primed for that after taking the drug. They all turn into literal monsters, and they come by. It's pretty freaky, right? And then a lot of nothing happens, but they're all hunkered down, and Maxwell Jefferson's fucking church. They're all huddling down, and then basically the big Lauren's big plan is okay, what we're going to do is we're going to bless the lake, fucking lake area, or what the fuck?
Yeah, and we're gonna get all the demons to chase us. Get all the demons.
We will grab them and baptize them.
Yeah, because they're looking for the perspective. The demons are their neighbors, like they're possessed people, and also of note, which goes into Lauren's kind of thread with her father, is that it is a multi-denominational experience. Everybody at that church, they're Hindus, they're Jewish, they're Christian, they're everything, and they all have their symbols for that. Like there's a Jewish star, there's a Hindu priestess thing, there's a cross, all that stuff is represented. So because kind of what one of the broader themes of the book is that it's about belief. It's not necessarily about the specifics of whatever denomination you follow. It's just about this belief in a higher power and this greater call to justice for yourself, this greater call to virtue that religion can bring into your life. And it's really part of because it's this wishy-washy, non-denominational thing, right? Where they're just no, it's about your intention. It's not about the specific religion. It's just about the intention of it. Right. And so everybody in Chicago gets to come together to try to save their neighbor, no matter what their denomination is. And like you said about Will Tenenbaum being the cool Jewish kid next door, well, that like is something that her father had a problem with. Now, probably not so much. They don't deliver on that. That is set up. It is not delivered on at all. But it's set up, which I thought was so weird because they specifically get into the fact that this is a multi-denominational effort.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, okay.
They're like fragments of ideas and things that maybe we could put together, but like you said, front and back end, and then it just like I guess it was coherent because you knew what happened, like all right, the story, but like there was everything else that like every subplot or every other aspect that gives you like a more holistic story or more something to chew on never connects for me. Never connects right there, and that was like a great example of one.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they set up a lot, like we said, like it's very front loaded and it sets up all of these possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
All of these ways the story could go that actually could be interesting, that could have some sort of, relative to the story being told. There could be something to sink your teeth into subtextually, and it just kind of doesn't. It's just like, no, we're just like we're a dumb action thriller. Like the end of the book is like akin to watching like a mediocre Marvel movie where it's just like it becomes like an insane mess, and you're like, what is going on? Like things happen so fast. Mm-hmm. You're just like, what the fuck is happening? Okay, or now there's demons everywhere now. Now we're rushing to the lake now. Mm-hmm. Talon's on his motorcycle now. Yeah. Robbie's arguing with his sister. Like, that's a part of the theme is about like, family and forgiveness that she learned from Talon when he was in the backseat of her car.
Well, I thought the most on the nose, like annoying theme is just like the ongoing, duality of, sinner, saint, like thing there. So you had like Talon.
The thin line.
Black, huh?
Yeah, the thin line.
Yeah.
Everybody's just this is like an Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, Batman. Like you are one bad day away from becoming a villain. Mm-hmm. Like that's what like Joker and Batman have this conversation. You learn about the Joker's backstory, and at the end, that's kind of the point of it. It's like you're just one bad day away from becoming me. Mm-hmm. And like that's kind of what Lincoln Black's whole thing is. Like he's trying to get Talon to realize that. He's like, something will happen and you could just you'll be me. And that's just the way it is. And Talon in response basically says the same thing. He's just like, no, you just need to see the light and you'll be like me. Mm-hmm. And that's about as deep as it gets.
And then even like somebody can see is after everything I've done. Oh yes you have. Yes you will. You can be saved, born again. Like, dude, the whole so how old do you think Talon is, right? Because they made a reference like in the book, or like last time he was in Chicago, the sky was in great fire. In reference to the Great Fire of Chicago, which was in the early 1900s, right?
Yeah.
And they also made it sound like, at least from that same text I'm referring to, is that he's from there.
He's got to be like 120 at the very least, right?
But here's the thing, though. So Lincoln Black says, you're an old man. I'm old, but you're way older than me, right? But then he makes a reference that, his mother was lynched. Now, when could that have been? And so, like, with our, shady history, it could have been, like, as early as, 60 years ago. Or 100 years ago, but he said it was in reference to a crime where they made this happen. Yeah. So lynching as a form of punishment, and the crime in which Lincoln Black's mother got lynched for was, I think, theft. That wasn't her or whatever. She wrongly accused of theft, and she got that. So that would go back over 120 years ago, and that was the punishment in some parts of this country for certain petty crimes.
Yeah.
So if that goes back a couple hundred years ago, then, and if he's much older than Lincoln, so it was, I don't know.
Yeah, that stuff is very.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's very messy, and you kind of don't understand why it's obscure.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just tell me?
You get so much detail and some new bullshit, and then you think about it, and then it doesn't go anywhere with it. Now you're pissed off because now you know about it. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure.
it's like little shit, like like how old they are, like stuff like that. To like just everything, or how the books are getting balanced in Chicago Vice PD. Like you get like so much detail and no substance. Like how does that work?
Well, because it's the things you get a lot of detail about are non sequiturs. They don't really matter to the larger theme of the story. Like, to really understand Talon and Lincoln Black's like dynamic, like you kind of have to know who they are.
Yeah.
Why is Talon so godly? Like why did he join? I mean, maybe this is this was planned to be a trilogy, so maybe that's something they'll like explore later if that ever happens.
Like we're not going to type. I don't want to type this up as a script and have it sit somewhere. So what we get like a return on in whatever way, right? Let's try to make a book out of it, right? So not doing a book, let's make it a script, and then like have this idea and like just basically sell it, see how it goes, test the waters with it, right? And like what better like way to do that than like trying to frame it as like a spiritual thriller and try to get Christian book sales because Christians buy books. They buy books. They buy the books.
No, it's
stats, but I don't have them. But just know, they buy the books.
Like this was an effort to a backdoor way to get a movie deal. Like because they're just like, oh, if we can sell a book and we can prove its viability, we'll be able to sell the script. And they were talking about this a year before the book came out. There's interviews with Deadline, which is the big Hollywood movie site. Deadline's usually pretty accurate. They did an interview with Wesley Snipes, and they were like, "Oh, do you have aspirations for this to be a movie?" He's like, "Yeah, that's like kind of the whole point. Like we want to make because Wesley Snipes, looking at his options as an actor at the time, just gotten out of jail. He did some low budget, like some very low budget stuff. Gallow Walkers, a few other things. He's just not the Wesley Snipes from the 90s and early 2000s. He's just not. Like in terms of bankability and studio interest. So they wanted to backdoor this by saying like we have a successful book. Like that's clearly the entire intention of this book.
Yeah.
Like it reads like a movie. It does not read like a novel.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. No. It doesn't. For better and worse, I suppose. Because for me, it made it an easier listen, but it made it a worse book. It's just not that interesting. But if you see it as a movie, I wouldn't say it's a good movie. It's not like a movie I would like, but I can understand why it would be like that if it was a movie.
Right.
Because you don't...
There be some things that make sense, right? And like sometimes the way the medium and what you're being exposed to it, you're more be more or less tolerant to it, right? Depending on like I get that, man. I think the way it is, no way can it be translated into anything unless you know what though. You know what? I'll tell you what though. Bayburn. 10 years.
I'm gonna pour some too.
This isn't a movie. This isn't a trilogy. You know what this could be if you wanted to make this work?
What?
Make this a fucking series.
I was gonna say a Netflix series, Paul.
No. Well, maybe, man, maybe. But get the people that brought you The Wire and have them do that with the Wire cast. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Right.
Like Clark Peters as Maxwell Jefferson, right? Lawrence Fox, all right? Yeah. Aidan Gillian as Christopher St. Luke. Fucking Littlefinger, right?
Yeah.
About that. You get chiseled up for that, right?
Yeah.
Idris Elba as Lincoln Black. And then obviously, Snipes will be like Talon, but then like John Doman as Victor, the fucking cop.
Yeah. Dominic? Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, you probably know better than me. That right, and then you have to find like some young and some 27-year-old strong-willed person to do. But I'm like, yeah, that'd be fine.
Like outside of space and time, I was like, Lauren Jefferson is the Doctor from Blade.
Yeah.
Outside of space and time, she's the same age as she was when she made Blade. That's literally that character.
Yeah. Well, that's like the Blade references, right? Because you sit there like, oh, there's all kinds of Blade references in there for for people that like to pick out. And I'm just like, besides her, but like she was like the way Lauren Jefferson, it was probably it was annoying as fuck. It was annoying as fuck. It was like a fucking like an AMC character, like an AMC show. Kind of annoying, like.
Well, because I listened to some interviews, I read some interviews. That was like a specific thing that they did, and I kind of said that at the beginning. It was specifically like to find equity with female action heroes. We wanted to write a female action hero specifically to make her the lead of this kind of story. And like,
okay,
Wesley Snipes being so magnanimous, he was so magnanimous. He was just like, "Listen, I'll be like the mentor. I'll be the side character." What a nice guy.
Yeah. The nicest. The nicest. Oh my god.
Honestly, I don't know why they don't like. It's probably Wesley Snipes is probably, or Dr. Snipes is probably like too. Even now, he would be too like too big for it, or he would feel like he was. Like, go to a Christian fucking company and like get them to give you $20 million and make the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They would. They do this with Kirk Cameron all the time. Call Kirk Cameron up. Like, you didn't have to make a low budget shitty version of it, but you could do it. And there's nothing in this movie that is that crazy except for the end. Except for the end when like when Christopher St. Luke's tower becomes like a hell tower and it's floating in the air and there's a fucking hole into hell and like demons are flying around and you got people on motorcycles driving and demons are there and Lauren's in her car with her brother Robbie and they're arguing and they're trying to get to the water. Like,
no, man, like as a story, it's everything, man. It's just it's a mess. It's a mess. And the main thing that got me through the whole book was just thinking of Snipes.
yeah, of course.
Thinking of, like Blade or everything. Like, I mean that like legit like carried the whole thing for it. And honestly, I don't know if I read it instead of like listening to it, I don't know if I would have finished reading it.
Yeah, I don't think I would have either, actually. Honestly, like, I mean, part of the impetus to finish it is because we knew we were going to do this, right? Like, so we're like, oh, okay, well, we're doing this with a purpose to a degree, but if I was like casually reading this,
like recreationally, like want to read it,
probably not. I don't know if I would have finished it. I probably would have made it like halfway through because it's just so there's just nothing there. And it's just so cartoonish, like, and even to out myself a little bit, it reminds me of, like, when I was an aspiring writer when I was, like, 12 or 13, and you and I would hang out and talk about stories that I wanted to write.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, it sounds a lot like that.
Yeah.
Like, I had this book I wanted to write called Hunter. That was about Talon Hunter. Oh, my God. Anyways, but Hunter, it was called Hunter, and it was about... because I was super into like vampires and like half man, half vampire. I'd watched the anime Vampire Hunter D. I was like really into that stuff. I was like, oh, it would be cool if you had like a half man, half vampire that like lived throughout history, and he had like a nemesis that had like stolen his wife at some point, turned her into a vampire, and they have this long generational battle. Basically, in essence, to win back his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Which, honestly, as I'm describing it, sounds way more interesting than this book. But anyways.
Let's just
but I had all the same shit, though. I had all the same shit, because I had watched Blade as a kid. I was like, oh, yeah, dude, there's karate, and there's sword fights, and, like, all this crazy, stupid shit. Like, they would be doing that in modern times, and I had church stuff involved in it. Like, I was like, oh, like, that's... So when I was listening to this, I felt a little bit of my like 13-year-old self. I was like, oh, like this is like what a 13-year-old thinks is profound. So when you put Bible quotes in the beginning of each chapter, that really kind of don't have anything to do with really what you're talking about. Only like if you suck it in a vacuum, that's like what a 13-year-old does. That's like what I would have done when I was a teenager. And thinking that's deep. That's profound. Well, I have all this crazy action movie stuff happening. Oh, but I used a Bible quote. Hunter was around when Jesus died. That's pretty deep. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just like, that's what this reminded me of the most. Like,
Right.
it's really like, you know, and I hate to say this, Dr. Snipes, because there's like 3 reviews of this on YouTube, so maybe you'll see this. But, like, this is amateur hour, buddy.
Yeah, we are. But no, Dr. Snipes didn't do anything. It was that Ray Norman guy.
He takes all the blame. Ray Norman takes all
we
the blame.
are sure, but anything that we like from this, it goes to Dr. Snipes. So
That's
then
true.
anything we don't like goes to Ray Norman.
That's true. That's true.
Ray Norman, eat a dick. Like what is he? You know what? Let's not do that. That's a shitty thing to do. Let's go back. What the fuck did he do? Huh? Let's go ahead. Let's go
You know,
ahead.
I think he did. You know, after listening to a few interviews, I think he did most of it. I think Wesley Snipes is a name. Ray Norman has an interesting career as a writer. Kind of made me feel bad for him. He's been a ghostwriter for like 15 years. Not his name has not been on anything he's written for a long time, except he's written like one other novel that has his name on it. But he's been a working ghostwriter for a long time. So, and that's probably why he knows Wesley Snipes, because he probably like doctored some scripts that Wesley Snipes maybe worked on at some point. But yeah, but it's probably mostly Ray Norman. But this movie, this book reminded me of a bunch of movies. Like it reminded me of Blade, Left Behind, like we said. Reminded me of End of Days.
End of Days. Yeah, shit, man.
The Prophecy.
But it's like what? But you're just saying though, because like throughout this whole like conversation we had, you kept referencing this movie, right? So was that the intent? Is to make this a movie, right? And it read like a movie, talked like a movie, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, and there you are saying like a movie. So then I guess they met their objective. This came out in 2017. I haven't seen the cinematic release of Talon of God, but hopefully it's not. Hopefully Dr. Snipes listens to this and says, "Hey, let's go find out the fucking guys who did The Wire and do what Big Paul said."
Exactly.
That would be banging.
Tell you
what,
everybody, if book 2 ever comes out, we will definitely talk about it.
Oh, yeah, I think
we're locked in. We're locked in. We're locked into this now. Yeah.
We're there for the Snipes. We're there for the Snipes.
Because listen, unironically, Snipes is a big part of my childhood, and I actually really love Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
I know it sounds stupid, but I really love what I get juiced. I get juiced watching Wesley Snipes act, in anything. Honestly, I wish he did more dramatic stuff, because he's not even a bad actor. He's a great actor. He's not just like an action movie guy. You could watch Jungle Fever or One Night Stand or it was what is it called? Brooklyn Crime. I don't know. He did some movie 5 or 6 years ago that was actually okay. That he was did a dramatic role. Go watch New Jack City. He's actually pretty good in that. That's not always intentional that it's funny, but it's a good movie. It's a very entertaining movie. So I am sincerely a big Wesley Snipes fan. And that's really why I wanted us to do this, and Paul felt the same way. It's yeah, of course, dude, it's Wesley Snipes. Because you kind of forget, how much you really like that dude, at least his screen persona. And then you watch Demolition Man, you watch Blade, you're fuck yeah, dude, Wesley Snipes. Let's watch Wesley Snipes movies forever.
Prior to recording, as we're doing this, there's a big UFC fight tonight, but we start talking about boxing, and we start talking about Tyson, right? And just people forget that guy was the best in the world, the meanest in the world, on the biggest stage in the sport, right? And then it's just really same thing as like the Snipes, don't sleep on Snipes, man. Don't sleep on Snipes.
Don't sleep on Snipes. I think honestly, he's got to have that like John Travolta Tarantino moment, like Travolta had with Pulp Fiction. Like somebody needs to like find Snipes and do something great with him, because we're not gonna get Blade Logan. We're not gonna get it, which I was really hoping we would get. I was really hoping we would get Old Man Blade at the end of the world. It's never gonna happen, but. I think Snipes he's versatile and he can do a lot of stuff and he's definitely game. I know that he's tough to work with. Everybody, listen, I know that. I think he's been humbled though. Give him another shot. You know what? I want to see Wesley Snipes and Mel Gibson.
Oh fuck, dude! You think about that, man? Like they like I think they would have like great on-screen chemistry. I think they would do something.
Yeah,
awesome.
actually, yes,
like,
Paul.
Fucking like gritty, dude. Like, oh my god,
Dude, we gotta get S. I'm gonna call S.
like
Craig.
across concrete.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'm gonna call S. Craig Zoller, and I'm gonna get him on it. Actually, Wesley Snipes totally could have played the Michael Jai White part in Drives Across Concrete. Who's the guy? He played Spawn, the Spawn movie, and he's like the guy's buddy who's the driver.
Right.
In Drives Across Concrete, he's like older black guy, he's like really big. He was in Black. He's Black Dynamite. I don't know if you've ever seen that hilarious movie.
Black Dynamite.
Yeah, he's Black Dynamite. But Wesley Snipes could have played that character. But Michael Jai White's great as well. So I'm glad that he didn't. But Wesley Snipes and and Mel Gibson in an S. Craig Zoller movie.
Yeah, that'd be some shit.
Dude, sky's the limit, baby. Maybe bring Vince Vaughn in there. Just do it. Just bring all the whole crew. Get Kurt Russell in there too from Bone Tomahawk. Just bring all the boys in.
Make it happen, man. Just make it fucking happen.
Yeah. Well,
just been in everything. So many things. I can't remember his name. Yeah, that guy too. Bring him in. Bring him in.
Bring them all in. S. Craig Zoller, you need to make your fucking masterpiece. You are yet to make your masterpiece. Listen, buddy. Listen. I really love your filmography. All 3 movies. Big fan.
They're so good.
But your masterpiece is still inside of you. And I think Wesley Snipes and Mel Gibson are involved. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Make sure you tag them in this too.
I should. I will, Paul. I'm going to tweet them. I'm going to be like, I'm going to clip this. And I'm going to be like, Wesley.
Yeah, you should.
Go talk to S. Craig Zoller. He's not on Twitter, but go find him.
Yeah, I'm down. I'll support that. I will retweet that. I will heart it, and then I will retweet that. Just let me know. That way I know.
I mean, my mind is spinning right now. The possibilities. I'm losing my shit right now.
Yeah.
Because you
maybe a post. There. We'll talk about some of these things. We'll talk about some.
You could do a movie about like a dude. Hold on. Do like a real life gritty Mortal Kombat where these old guys have to go fight to the fucking death, some sort of death match situation with like a good script and like that fucking dialogue that Zoller, that quietness, that like patience that Zoller has as a filmmaker, and just like really get into like these guys. Like, I don't just contrive some stupid thing where some rich people bring to an island. I don't even care. Yeah.
Probably have to get pull off some island out of no, not. Let's talk about it. We can keep it going.
Yeah, we'll figure it. We will spitball this. But yeah, so I guess that's it for Talon of God. That was thank you, Paul. Thank you for.
Yeah, no, there wasn't anything to chew on, man. And the last thing that I listened to was Scanner Darkly, where I was like, and then you go to this.
Yeah. Well, Scanner Darkly is like a giant piece of meat that you have to like chew on, and it's painful and uncomfortable. You don't like it all the time, but it's giving you sustenance. This is like eating a cheese sandwich, and you're like, "Can I get another one?
Yeah.
Can I get another slice of cheese, please?"
It was like a cheese sandwich, but it's only because it's like the end of the week. Your fridge run depleted. And like one bread, you got the actual slice, the other one's the fucking end piece that nobody likes. So you try to salvage it by flipping it over the other side because I'm going to grill it. And you don't want to grill like the end piece of it, so you want to flip on the other side. Yeah. And then when you bite into it, there's too much of that bread from the end piece in there because it's
too soft. Yeah.
I was saying, Shaun, is that the book sucked. Dr. Snipes. Dr. Snipes. No, we're down. We're down.
Yeah,
I know
we're
online.
down
I
the
didn't
clock.
read into it, but I know there's like a cult following to this. They made like their like a what do you call their fan fiction sequels to this?
Really?
Yeah,
Oh shit! I didn't even find that.
yeah. So I mean, that was why I was like, "There's 3 things I wanted to do before we talked about this." I was like, "Fuck, I'm terrible. I'm terrible." But yeah, that was one of them. I wanted to pull that up.
Well, I
But,
guess if people want to go out and find out the rest of the story, because I have a feeling they're not going to finish this because this did not go the way they wanted it to. By like garnering interest. I couldn't find any sales. I looked for sales information. I'm kind of guessing it's probably not great. I mean, it's reviewed very well. Like if you go to Amazon or Goodreads, like it's like a 3.7 out of 5, 4.4 out of 5 average because of that cult. It's those people, because a lot of people will leave reviews like best thing I've ever read, 5 stars. I came into this not knowing what to expect.
McDonald's fans.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of Tom McDonald fans probably involved in this. This is a cabal. They're out for your money, people. Let it go.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So I can't recommend Talon of God, but I would say if you're a Snipes head, if you're a sniper maniac like me, there is something at least you will get if you can imagine Wesley Snipes writing this while you're reading it. If you can do that mental gymnastic, I say go for it. If you find it in a used bookstore for $2, give it a go. Like we read so much trash, all the things we experience. If you scroll your Twitter feed, I'll say this: Talon of God is more fulfilling than scrolling your Twitter feed. So there's that. It's got that going for it, and it does ultimately has a positive message about self-actualization and not being a coward and doing the right thing and standing up for yourself, pulling yourself out of adverse circumstance. There's there's good stuff in there. Like, I wrote for themes that has themes.
There's good messages, right?
Yeah.
But that's also where they're trying to contribute to being like a Christian thriller.
Yes.
Like, if you want to be a thriller, you want to like throw that label on it. Then what do you got to talk about? You got to talk about golden rules. You got to talk about
But I will say this. But Snipes and this this what's his name? Ray Norman. They are true believers. They are. And that is something they openly discuss. If you look at interviews with them, they're not they're doing the best with what they can do and what they know, but they are true believers. They're not people that are interlopers that are like, oh, we can make some money off of Christian book sales. I don't think that was entirely the motive. I think it's probably part of it that they thought maybe that this would blow up because Wesley Snipes, his name is on it and it's got a Christian kind of tinge. But part of the problem is the marketing was not explicitly Christian. I think if the marketing was more explicitly Christian, they probably would have done better in Christian circles. But it's not. They were kind of like, even if at the beginning of the podcast, I read that little plot synopsis. There's nothing in there that's like specifically Christian. It's just like good versus evil story. Like that's what it describes. And that's probably a mistake on their part.
They had, like, with the exception of like citing a Bible verse at the beginning of every chapter, like any part that they had to like take a Christian stance becomes like this vanilla non-denominational shit. Even like one exchange with Talon and Lauren when they're on their way driving to her father's church, where she's like, "You are a Christian, you're just citing Buddha," and he's like, well, I am a Christian, but anyone, as long as there's one God, you love him, and whatever you call his name is, as long as you believe in that one God, and that's like such a non-Christian thing to do, unless
there is a version of Christianity that's non-denominational, and that's what it is kind of playing party to, because the theme of the story would be like faith. You have to have faith in a higher power.
making it too. That it's just like it's not like like Christian. Like there wasn't anything like that. Like
well, dude, it's pretty like if you're talking about like God and Jesus and things like that. Like
there's no like talk about Jesus.
I don't know. I don't think they. Whoa! Not so fast, okay? Here's future editor Shaun here with a correction. So, no, they totally mentioned Jesus by name several times. Well, only really one time explicitly about Jesus, like the Christian notion of what Jesus represents, and that comes from Lauren Jefferson's father, who's a preacher, who's obviously overtly Christian in the traditional sense. So take that past Shaun and Paul. You guys are fucking jokes. You're wrong, and you have besmirched the good name of Dr. Snipes, and I will not have it. Back to the show.
When they talk about Jesus is saying that like I am a Christian.
No, they don't ever. Yeah, you're right. They don't ever specifically name Jesus. I mean, angels, demons, is that like, I guess that's broadly across all religions. They all have that version of that.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess so. You know what, Dr. Snipes, maybe you should just commit it. Okay, buddy? Take off those Buddha beads, put on a rosary, be ready to rock and roll. I'll get you $1 million, baby. I'll get you 10 million. You think Mel Gibson made The Passion of the Christ a hit by being wishy-washy, buddy? I don't think so.
Fucking committed. And that's the thing too, right? So this show's been redone. This should have been redone with fucking the Gibson. They should have went and hash on this one.
What would you say to a Talon of God directed by Mel Gibson?
Well, who's going to write it?
Oh, Gibson's going to have his fingers all over that script. And we know Gibson can deliver the goods.
He can. But you think about it, like get some like fucking gritty like
you got to get somebody like Gibson,
like an apocalypto, like oh man.
Oh, yeah, you got to get somebody like Gibson in there because that's somebody Wesley Snipes would respect. Because Gibson is Gibson.
80s action star, just like
yeah. Honestly, it's a crime that they never did anything together back in the day.
No shit.
No disrespect to Danny Glover, by the way, because I know that's the only black co-star Mel Gibson ever had. But
well, he had Kurt Russell and Tequila Sunrise.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
They don't get much blacker in Hollywood than that. So
yeah, of course, yeah. Than Kurt Russell. Actually, one of my all-time favorite actors. Like I said, I think Kurt Russell should be involved in this S. Craig Zoller, Gibson, Snipes film. I think he should be involved. I think it should be a trio. We just the magic. You know what? Bring in Stallone. Let's. Now
we're getting silly.
Dude, listen. Sylvester Stallone gave Wesley Snipes a job, his first job after he got out of prison in Expendables 3, which also had Mel Gibson, who had fallen out of favor because of remarks, his personal life. He's the villain of Expendables 3. Now, I'm not saying Expendables 3 is a good movie. Expendables 3 is the best Expendables movie, though. I'll say that because it's the dumbest one. Because there's no pretense of any fucking, trying to save South Americans or anything like that. No, it's just a dumb fucking action movie. Mel Gibson is great as the villain. Wesley Snipes is a lot of fun. Check it out, kids. Check it out.
I will, because I haven't watched any of them.
Dude, you haven't watched Expendables 3?
I did. It's one of those things, man. I always want to get around to it, but I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to...
Dude, it's dumb as fuck. It's dumb as a box of rocks, but, watching Mel Gibson basically play like a Bond villain, ridiculous, shooting a rocket launcher out of a helicopter at people and then winking at them is amazing.
Well...
And then he has a brawl with Stallone at the end of the movie. Come on, while a building is collapsing around them. Come on.
Well, okay. Hey, you sold me.
Harrison Ford shows up in a helicopter to save them as the building is collapsing.
Harrison Ford's in it too?
Yeah, dude. That movie is dumb as fuck.
I gotta see this now. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a good
Where
one.
have I been? Where
Oh
have I
my
been?
God, Paul, you
Where have I
know,
gone? Goddamn rock. Oh man.
I gotta tell you when we first started, I thought this was gonna be an hour episode. We're at an hour 40 minutes.
Oh fuck.
So,
Yeah.
so, so thank you, Wesley Snipes, Dr. Snipes. Thank you, Ray
Dr.
Norman.
Snipes, thank you.
It's given Paul and I this quality time together, and we will forever be grateful.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much, Paul.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy.
All right, everybody. If you'd like to know more about ZooBox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, my brother Dan's Twitter. Also, if you'd like to leave me a personal message, our email address is there. You can tell me how awful I am, or you can just leave it in the comments too. I see those as well. You just leave it there. Like, oh, what's this fat guy doing? You son of a bitch. Anyways, good night, everybody. Goodbye.
You ever feel like demons? Hallelujah! Talon of God. Love and light, family. Woo! Am I excited? Here it is. Talon of God, my first novel. I want you all to check this out. It's an urban supernatural thriller set in the mean streets of Chicago with a holy warrior who's set to protect a young woman who happens to be a doctor and doesn't know that she is the heir apparent to the sword of truth and the sword of justice. You ever see shadows? You ever feel like somebody's watching you? Or surrounding you? We got a solution for you. July 25th. Pre-order now. Pre-order now. They're kind of hot. Running out. And follow me. Follow me. We're going to have plenty of stories. We're going to talk about this and some other things too.